So this is future me recording the audio in the normal way that I do at some point long after I've left the garage. However, there's been lots of comments recently relating to the reasons why I've designed the hinges the way that I have. Now these are all really valid and very interesting comments and questions. So rather than the usual format of me talking over the top of lots of video interspersed between the film clips and the music that everybody absolutely always loves without question, I thought this time I would let present me talk to you from the actual workshop. So, there's been lots of comments online about why exactly did I design the hinges to be like this. So there have been lots of suggestions as well about alternative hinge designs and why didn't I do them this way or that way. So I thought I would be actually speaking to you today from within the workshop and take you through some of the prototype ideas I did try that didn't work and the reasons for that. So one of the suggestions was to do something along the lines of, if the door is there, bodywork is there, you have a hinge point there with something that goes like that. So basically that can hinge out and you don't get the issue with the bodywork hitting around there. So part of the issue I've got is that, I'll get my hand in there, this A-post that's here was something that was designed about 20 years ago and it seemed to be in the right place at the right time. The problem is, it turns out it's not really in the right place. So any hinge has to pivot from the other side of that. And before anybody suggests, why don't I just move it, the problem is it's tied in to the entire bulkhead structure, and that would be nearly impossible to do. Now, sitting underneath that tarpaulin cover up there is actually my Cobra replica, and that in fact does use this sort of gooseneck design for door hinges. So when I first started putting together ideas for the doors and the hinges, that's exactly the design that I did in fact try to use. And they look a bit like this. Now I actually think they look quite neat. You know, I like the retro design of it. It's in keeping with the rest of the car. The problem was, when I put them on the car, the door flexes. These doors are actually really long, and due to the shape of the bodywork, those hinges can only be so far apart from each other in order for them to actually work. Now, in reality, it probably wouldn't actually been too much a problem if there's a tiny bit of flex. But, you know, it doesn't feel like a professional, well-made product if you lean on the door and it bends. So doing those hinges, that didn't work. The obvious thing to do is make a stronger version. And that's where this monstrosity comes in. Basically, I started off by using some door hinge shape and then continually adding more and more strength into it to try and stop the overall flexing. The problem was, despite all that ironmongery, by the time I got that back on the car, it still flexed. Much better than the other design, but it still flexed. So that is why we ended up going for the design that we did. But again, some of the questions are, why do it that way? So this is actually a regular modern hatchback. And if we open the door and actually have a look at the way that Volkswagen have done the hinges, you can see that it is in fact exactly the same way as I'm building the hinges for this car. And what that means is, as the door opens, the front face of the door actually slides slightly inside the A-post, which is exactly the same as happens on the project car. And as future me explains in a forthcoming video, I've actually managed to tighten up the panel gap so they are pretty much exactly the same as on the Golf. Now, one of the other suggestions in the comments was why not do Lambo type doors? The sort of door that you see on top of the range Lamborghini, so a door that basically hinges upwards rather than outwards. So in order to do a Lamborghini style door, the hinge point is somewhere around here, and basically the door hinges up that way. Two issues with that. First of all, this is the windscreen post. So if you actually look at a Lamborghini, the way their doors work is the bit that actually covers that is on the door, because the door has to shut onto it from this way. So the door rubber needs to go over the top of it. So basically the door can open on top of it that way. It also means if you've got a window behind here, which I am looking to potentially do, that window can't, actually the door can't open because the window hits here. So you end up with a very strange shape A-post windscreen pillar in order for the door to be able to shut over the top of it. The other issue is that if the pivot point is up here, then basically this bit of the door here, as that hinges up, that rotates backwards and would hit into the rear wing. So basically you'd need to have some other sort of swervy, curvy design around here for that door design to work. The other thing is that, you know, this is a 1930s style car. Lamborghini doors weren't invented till 1970s. So, you know, whilst I like the idea of it, I think it's cool, I don't think it would actually work on this designer car. I think it looked really weird. And in fact, I did actually do a Lamborghini style door on my Triumph GT6. And after having done it, I hated it so much, I got rid of it again. So another idea was to do a suicide door. That is a door that hinges at the back. And again, this is very in keeping with this style of car. So, you know, it wouldn't look out of place at all. There are, again, a couple of problems. Firstly, in order for this to work, this is the width of the door that I've got at the back. So if the hinge were to live in here, it would only be about half the width, half the height of something like this. That is far too tall. It can only be about that big. And as that flexed, doing half of it is going to flex even worse. So I don't know whether it would be viable that you could ever make anything in steel that would actually be able to support a door that big and heavy with a pivot that's only a maximum of that height. So I think that in itself is probably a no-go. The other problem is, in the UK, it is legal just to be able to have suicide doors. If you look at modern Rolls Royces, they do it. But it's not as simple as the type of door we've got here, where you just need a 2-position catch and then you're good to go. To do suicide doors in the UK and make them legal, you have to first of all have the mechanical lock, but then you also need to have a sort of interlock mechanism that automatically means that the doors cannot be opened while the vehicle's in motion. And that means potentially some more complicated electronics and more complicated hardware. Now, I can do that. I have got the capabilities of doing that. You know, I could build the circuitry, I could build the electronics, and I could build the mechanical process for doing it. But it's an awful lot of work, and you're still relying on the person that is going to do the actual inspection to get the vehicle registered, believing that your stuff works. So it's not really practical, and at this stage I'm trying to get to a situation where the car is, you know, more finished, rather than just being vaguely finished, nearly finished. So I don't really want to go to that level of complexity on the off chance that some guy in a brown lab coat somewhere down the line takes one look at it and goes, nah, don't like it, I'm not going with it. So I think sadly suicide doors are out. I would like to have done them, but it's not going to work. So one of the questions from the comments was about my decision to use these sort of rose joints for the hinges, and are they likely to wear out? Two reasons why I use them. First of all, they have absolutely zero slop in them, and in other designs that I've done, so for example these, you know, I'm building my own bushes and things, and whilst they're all right, these have no slop in them whatsoever. With regards to them wearing out, they might wear out, but I use these on my virtual reality motion platforms. We use them for everything, both 8mm, 10mm, sort of, you know, bigger ones even still. And in years of using these things, the only time I've ever had one wear out is when basically we damaged it. Other than that, these things are designed to rotate for a very, very long time. If they do wear out, they're only £8 a pair, so you know it's not the end of the world to just change them if I need to. But I just don't think realistically the number of times a car door gets opened that they're gonna wear out. I could also, if I need to, I could use bigger ones, but you know I think these will do. So it's a bit of a departure from the usual videos that I've been making. It'd be interested to hear from people what they think about me talking directly to the camera like this versus the edits and, you know, all the usual rubbish with the music and the film clips and all that sort of stuff. So let me know what you think about this. Hopefully that gives you a bit of a better understanding about the thought processes that have gone into making these doors. Yeah, comments and suggestions from people are always welcome. You know, I'm glad I can make this video to talk about some of the things that I have tried in the past with this. So please keep the comments going. You know, I don't have a monopoly on all the ideas. So if somebody's come up with a great idea, stick it in the comments. You know, I do read every single one. I reply to every single comment, and I do consider every single comment. So let me know what you think. I can do a few more bits like this in the future if you like it. Alternatively, we'll stick with Henry Cavill saying. So this is future me again, speaking to you some point after I recorded all this footage. But as it's a nearly finished car building video, I guess we better actually show some car building. So last time, having got to the position where the door shuts pretty well, it was then time to start working out how we actually get the door rubbers to fit. This is one of those areas in car design that sounds actually pretty simple, but in reality can be a bit of a nightmare. And real car designers spend a fortune having lots of bespoke rubber extrusions created in order to make car doors seal properly. Unfortunately, I don't have that luxury, so I'm stuck using rubber extrusions that look a bit like this. And the problem that I've got is that with the door catch where it is at the moment, it's sitting exactly where this rubber needs to seal against the door. And if you're playing the nearly finished drinking game, Henry Cavill has spoken, so take a shot now. So I looked to see whether I could make the door rubber seal against a different part of the door, maybe bypassing the door latch. Sadly, this wasn't going to work. So the only thing left to do is move the door catch further up the door, out of the way of the door rubbers. And you know what? It does fit pretty well up here. So that, I think, is going to be its new home. By moving it up there, there was also a good opportunity to clean up this monstrosity that currently lives on the back of the lifting boot panel. I had originally envisaged that some of the door sealing rubber would actually have to live on this lifting panel. But by moving the pivot point and changing the way that the door rubbers are going to work, I can do away with that in its entirety. And the biggest benefit of making that change is that it now means that the rear lifting panel can open and close without having to open the doors first. So this is about where the door latch needs to end up. And in order to do that, we need to do some cardboard aided design and shape a panel for it to bolt onto. Now I know as well from the comments, there's some people that are not the biggest fans of the music, and I understand that. Music is a very personal choice. However, sometimes there is only so much stuff I can talk about whilst I cut and grind metal panels. I also, very much with this channel, don't want to get into the Blue Peter way of doing things, where I just suddenly magically go, and here's one I created earlier. I also want to keep the fabrication process that I'm going through very grounded. So I don't just break out my laser scanner, upload some CAD designs into my £1 million water jet, and then just magically have produced some bits to weld onto the car. Nearly everything you see me do on this car can be done at home with relatively basic tools. Okay, I happen to have a fairly high quality welder, but you can do it with a much cheaper device. Anyway, the point that I'm waffling towards making is that sometimes I just need to show a montage of what can be quite a long period of time that I've spent fabricating a panel. So I'm afraid you're sort of stuck with the montage music. However, I won't be offended in any way whatsoever if you want to skip forward to the end of this bit. So, with the latch in the right place, I then needed to make a bracket for the catch to bolt onto. So this was a very similar process of making a template with some cardboard, finding some flat bar stock, doing some cutting, doing some drilling, and doing some welding. And I'm very pleased to say that having measured everything twice, as you should always do, cut once, welded the bracket together, it did of course fit perfectly. Take a drink, and Garage Me will get back to making some adjustments. So, did it fit now? Actually, this one wasn't too much of a problem to fix. So I was out with the drill and the rotary burrs and essentially just overlap the slot where the door latch peg bolts to, so I can move it across about 4 or 5 millimeters. So there we go. The door's in the right place. It opens and shuts with a latch that works quite well, and we're in a position where we can start to design next time how the door rubbers actually fit.